You're in the middle of a conversation, and part of your mind is already somewhere else, quietly replaying something you said 2 hours ago, analyzing whether they took it the right way, running a little simulation of how they might have felt. Meanwhile, you're nodding, still present, still smiling, but somewhere under that, a whole other conversation is already happening. Or it's the night before something important. Nothing dramatic, just a meeting, a message you haven't replied to yet, a decision that isn't even urgent, and you can't stop. The same thought loops around again, slightly different each time, like it's looking for a version of itself you'll finally accept. You try to sleep. You lie there. The ceiling has never been more interesting. You've probably been told at some point that you think too much. Maybe you've told yourself that already, like it's a small malfunction, a quirk you just have to manage. But what if it isn't a malfunction at all? There's a specific kind of exhaustion that overthinking produces, and it's different from regular tiredness. It's not physical. It's more like a low hum in the background that never quite turns off. You finish the day and feel drained by things that didn't technically happen, conversations that existed only in your head, outcomes you prepared for that never arrived, apologies you composed but never sent. That. People who think a lot tend to carry this invisible weight. The ones who rehearse what they're going to say before a phone call, who notice a slight change in someone's tone and spend the next hour filing it away, cross-referencing it, who will revisit a decision they already made, a good one probably, just to make absolutely sure. It can look like worry from the outside. Sometimes it is worry, but a lot of the time it's something else. It's preparation. Here's the thing about overthinking that most explanations miss. It isn't random. The mind doesn't spin out on things that feel safe. It spins on things where the outcome matters, and where the outcome feels like it could slip out of your hands at any moment. Psychologists talk about something called intolerance of uncertainty, a term that sounds clinical but describes something deeply human. The discomfort isn't really about the specific scenario you're rehearsing. It's about what uncertainty itself feels like in your body. For some people, not knowing what will happen next is almost physically uncomfortable. The brain reads it the way it reads a threat. Not dramatic, not conscious, just unsafe. And so it starts working, scanning, mapping out the possibilities. If this happens, then this. If that, then that. It's building a model of the future so complete that nothing can surprise it. The overthinking isn't the problem. It's the solution. A solution to something that rarely gets named directly. The fear of being helpless. Most people assume that worrying and thinking too much means you're anxious about bad outcomes, and sometimes that's true. But the deeper current, the one that actually drives the loop, is the need to feel like you had a hand in it, like you weren't just standing there when life happened. If you've already thought of the worst case, it can't blindside you. If you've imagined a difficult conversation 17 different ways, at least one version of you is prepared. There's a quiet logic in it. An attempt at authorship over a life that can, at any moment, do something completely unexpected. Neuroscientist Lisa Feldman Barrett's research suggests that the brain is fundamentally a prediction machine. It doesn't wait to experience the world. It constructs what it expects to experience, then adjusts when reality differs. For people who think a lot, this system is just running at a higher gain. More predictions, more checking, more refinement. That's not brokenness. That's sensitivity turned up. But here's the quiet cost that tends to go unnoticed. When you're constantly preparing for what might happen, you're very rarely just in what is happening. The present moment becomes a staging area, something to move through on the way to the next thing to think about. And this is where it gets a little uncomfortable to sit with. The things most worth experiencing are exactly the ones the thinking mind can't control. A conversation that goes somewhere unexpected, a feeling that surfaces without warning, a moment that doesn't fit into any of the models you built for it. The mind that needs to predict in order to feel safe will sometimes move past those moments before they've had a chance to land, not out of indifference, out of protection. There's a particular loneliness in that, being surrounded by a life you worked hard for and still feeling like you're watching it from a slight distance. Present, but not quite inside it, like there's a layer of glass between you and the thing you actually wanted. People who overthink often feel this. They don't always have words for it, but they feel it. What changes things, and it's rarely dramatic, which is maybe the point, is recognizing what the thinking is actually protecting. It was never about the scenarios, it was about not feeling powerless, and that fear makes complete sense. For a lot of people, it has a history. Moments where being unprepared really did mean being hurt, where uncertainty wasn't just uncomfortable, it was dangerous. The mind learned, the mind remembered, and it never quite got the update that things are different now. So the work, and this is slow, unglamorous work, isn't to stop thinking. That's not the goal, and it's not really possible. The work is to loosen the relationship between not knowing and not being okay. To notice the thoughts spinning up and ask, what am I actually afraid of losing control of right now? Not the scenario, the feeling underneath the scenario. Sometimes the answer is surprisingly small, and sometimes small is all you needed to find. You were in the middle of something earlier today, a thought that came back around, a version of a conversation you kept adjusting, a quiet hum that didn't quite turn off. That part of you isn't a problem to fix. It's a mind that cares about the outcome, about the people involved, about doing things right. It just learned somewhere along the way that caring meant preparing, that safety meant certainty. And so it prepares, endlessly, carefully, with a kind of exhausting dedication. The invitation, and it's only an invitation, is to let some of the not knowing be okay. Not all of it, not forever. Just enough to be here, in this moment, without already being 3 steps ahead. The mind that thinks too much isn't the problem. It just hasn't been told, gently enough, that it can rest. If something in this felt familiar, if you recognize yourself somewhere in it, there's more on this channel exploring why we do what we do beneath the surface. The next video might be worth staying for.